When the alien fleet appeared in Earth's skies, the world held its breath. Cities went silent. Oceans shimmered with silver reflections of colossal ships that blocked the sun itself. And from one of those vessels descended her, Princess Seraphina of Lyra. She was known throughout the stars for her brilliance and her cold, flawless logic. Her voice could quiet an entire court. Her gaze, sharp and distant, held the weight of galaxies. To her, humans were curious, yet primitive. Their emotions, she once said, were beautifully inefficient. When she arrived on Earth's council deck, a gleaming glass platform hovering above the Atlantic, the human delegates trembled. The alien princess stood before them in luminous silver armor, her violet eyes unreadable. And beside the council's chair stood a single guard, a human soldier named Elias Hart. He was ordinary by appearance, but something in his stillness stood out. He wasn't trembling. He wasn't looking away. When Seraphina's eyes passed over the crowd, they paused, just briefly, and on him. Human civilization, she said, her tone smooth and distant, has potential, but lacks restraint. You love too fiercely. You fight too blindly. You destroy what you adore. We, the Lyrans, will ensure your evolution, with or without consent. Her words echoed like crystal through the chamber. Gasps, whispers, fear. And yet, one human spoke. Elias stepped forward, armor reflecting the morning sun. With respect, Your Highness, he said, voice steady. Maybe it's that same love and fight that made us survive when no one thought we could. The chamber froze. No one ever interrupted the Princess of Lyra. Her silver brows arched. You interrupt royalty, human? I defend humanity, he replied quietly. If that's interruption, so be it. The guards raised their weapon, but Seraphina lifted a single hand. The room obeyed her silence. Her gaze sharpened, curiosity flickering beneath the ice. What is your name? She asked. Elias Hart. Elias, she repeated softly, tasting the word. You believe emotion is strength? I know it is, he said. We build, we dream, we rise again, not because we're perfect, but because we feel. Seraphina stepped closer. The hum of her armor whispered like wind through stars. Then tell me, Elias Hart, what has feeling ever given your kind and except war and ruin? He didn't answer right away. His eyes turned to the pale blue sky stretching above them, still scarred from the invasion's fire. Then he met her gaze again, unwavering. It gave us hope, he said, and that's the one thing no empire can control. For the first time, Princess Seraphina blinked, not out of surprise, but out of something deeper. A spark she hadn't felt in years, confusion maybe, or intrigue. Later that night, aboard her ship, Seraphina stood by her window, staring down at the earth below. Her advisor, Lord Kale, approached quietly. Your Highness, he murmured, shall we proceed with planetary assimilation? She didn't respond. Her thoughts were elsewhere, on a single human voice that had defied her certainty. Finally, she whispered almost to herself, emotion gave them hope. How illogical, how dangerous. But her fingers trembled ever so slightly as she turned away from the glass. Princess Seraphina of Lyra was not easily unsettled. She had been raised in crystalline halls where emotion was considered a weakness, where logic ruled every breath, and affection was something reserved for myths. Yet that night, as her ship orbited the quiet blue planet below, her mind would not rest. The words of the human soldier echoed like a melody she couldn't silence. It gave us hope. Hope. A fragile thing, invisible and unpredictable, yet somehow powerful enough to challenge her authority. In her private quarters, where silver curtains swayed to the rhythm of the ship's hum, Seraphina stood before her reflection. The glass shimmered with faint starlight, showing the same composed expression she had mastered since childhood. But her eyes betrayed her. There was a flicker there, something almost human, she whispered. Why can't I forget him? A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Her advisor, Lord Kale, appeared on the hollow screen, his features stern and loyal. Your Highness, the Council requests confirmation of the Earth assimilation timeline. Seraphina straightened. Proceed as scheduled, she said automatically, then hesitated. No, delay for 48 cycles, I wish to observe further. Kale's brows furrowed. Observe? Humans are volatile, Princess. They should be managed, not studied. Her tone cooled. Are you questioning me, Kale? He bowed instantly. Never, Your Highness. When the screen vanished, she exhaled softly. Her voice was calm, but her heart, that traitorous, unregulated heart, felt heavier than the void. Meanwhile, down on Earth, Elias' heart walked through the ruins of a coastal city. Alien drones hovered silently overhead, monitoring reconstruction efforts. The humans worked in uneasy peace, not quite slaves, not quite free. Elias had been assigned as a liaison, a title that meant little more than a watchman under alien command. But he took it seriously. Every child he helped, every home he rebuilt, every frightened voice he comforted, it reminded him why he'd spoken up that day. And then, one morning, the unthinkable happened. The sky shimmered, and from the descending beam of light emerged her, Seraphina herself. No guards, no escort, just the princess stepping delicately onto human soil. The crowd around him froze, awestruck and terrified. Elias instinctively moved forward, bowing his head slightly. "Your Highness?" "Didn't expect to see royalty in the rubble." Her lips curved just barely. "Nor did I expect to find order among the chaos." Her gaze drifted to the humans rebuilding a bridge nearby. Small, fragile figures carrying stones and steel with trembling hands. "They rebuild what was destroyed," she said quietly, "even when the outcome is uncertain." "That's what we do," Elias replied. "We fall, we rise, we keep trying." She studied him for a long moment. "You said emotion gave you hope, but I see exhaustion, fear and loss in their eyes." "Yes," he said softly, "but hope isn't the absence of fear. It's what survives through it." For the first time, something gentle passed across her face. Not quite a smile, but close. "I wish to understand this," she said at last. "This resilience," Elias tilted his head. "Understand it? Or feel it?" Her expression hardened slightly. "Do not presume to know me, human." He gave a small nod. "Then let me show you. Walk with us. Help us rebuild. Maybe then you'll see what we're made of." There was a pause, the kind that felt like the universe itself was waiting. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the Princess of Lyra stepped forward and lifted a broken beam with her own hands. The crowd stared. Elias just smiled, and in that single, impossible moment, the alien princess who once dismissed humanity began to question everything she'd ever believed. For the first time in her life, Princess Seraphina of Lyra felt dirty. Her hands, once spotless, untouched by anything less than royal metal, were covered in dust and ash. Human children ran by, their laughter echoing against crumbling walls. Workers called out to one another, their voices rough but full of life. And beside her, Elias' heart worked in silence. He didn't treat her like royalty. He didn't bow every time she spoke or flinch at her presence. He simply handed her tools, offered brief instructions, and worked. And somehow that quiet, steady companionship unsettled her more than any interstellar council ever had. By midday, Seraphina had grown clumsy blisters on her palms. The human sun, unfiltered by Lyra's crystalline domes, burned against her pale skin. But she said nothing. She watched them, the humans, their eyes shining even through exhaustion, their laughter surfacing amid ruin. At one point, a small child approached her, a girl no older than 7 with mismatched shoes and a shy smile. The girl held out a wildflower. "For you," she said softly. Seraphina blinked. "You gift this to me?" The girl nodded. "Because you helped." For a moment, the princess could not speak. She took the flower, awkwardly at first, as if it might shatter. The petals were fragile, trembling against her gloved fingers. "Thank you," Seraphina murmured, and meant it. Elias watched from a distance, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He'd seen hardened soldiers break under less pressure than this princess was taking on. But she didn't falter. She learned. Later, as twilight colored the ruins golden violet, Seraphina stood at the water's edge beside Elias. The reflection of the alien ship shimmered faintly above the waves. "You weren't lying," she said quietly. "About what?" "About your hope. It's everywhere. In your eyes, in your broken cities, in the way even your smallest child refuses to give up." She paused, her voice softening. "It's maddeningly beautiful." Elias turned to her. "And yet your people think we're dangerous because we feel too much." "Perhaps," she admitted. "But maybe that's why you endure. You anchor yourselves not with reason but with emotion, even in despair." He smiled faintly. "It's what makes us human." She studied him for a long while, her eyes tracing the lines of his face, the weariness etched into his expression, and the quiet fire behind his calm. "Tell me, Elias Hart," she asked suddenly, "what anchors you?" He hesitated, the question sinking deeper than she expected. Then he looked toward the horizon. "Memories," he said softly, "of the people I lost. The ones I couldn't save. They remind me that every moment I'm still breathing. I can still make something better." Serafina's chest tightened. Loss, she knew the concept, not the feeling. On Lyra, emotion was regulated, erased, replaced by pure function. No one mourned. No one yearned. Yet here was this human, scarred, fragile, carrying sorrow like a flame, not a burden. That night, as the others slept, Serafina sat by the fire, a strange, primal warmth licking at the air. Elias joined her, silent for a while. "You're different from the stories your people tell about us," she said at last. "Same goes for you," he replied. A quiet pause settled between them. Then softly she asked, "Elias, do you ever stop feeling?" He looked at her, really looked, and answered, "Never, and I hope I never do." She turned away, her eyes shimmering faintly under the starlight. "Then perhaps that is your greatest power, Mon, and your greatest curse." The wind whispered through the ruins, carrying the faint scent of salt and ash. And for the first time, the Princess of Lyra, once emotionless and absolute, felt something she couldn't define. It wasn't logic. It wasn't duty. It was longing. By the time dawn broke over the shattered coast, Princess Serafina was no longer certain whom she was serving, her empire or her heart. She stood on a high ridge overlooking the reconstruction site, her silver cloak catching the morning light. Below her, humans worked tirelessly. They waved when they saw her, no longer afraid, and that, more than anything, terrified her. She had come as their ruler, yet they now looked at her like a friend, and friends were dangerous. Her communicator pulsed sharply. "Princess Serafina," came Lord Kale's cold voice. "The council grows impatient. They demand your return to orbit. Our occupation was not meant for sentiment." Serafina closed her eyes. "Delay transmission," she said flatly. "With respect, Highness, Earth is beneath us." "You've seen their chaos." Her voice snapped like ice. "I said delay transmission." The line went silent. When she turned, Elias was standing a few steps away carrying a crate of supplies. "You're not exactly following orders anymore, are you?" he said lightly. Her gaze lingered on him. "You speak as though I've betrayed my world." He set the crate down. "Have you?" That question hung between them. The Princess of Lyra, the perfect heir of a logic-bound empire, didn't answer. Because deep down, she didn't know. As the day passed, she worked alongside the humans again, but her thoughts were storming. She caught herself watching Elias, the way he listened to others, the way he smiled without expecting anything in return. He made people trust. At midday, when a gust of cold wind swept across the ruins, Elias handed her his jacket. "You'll freeze out here," she frowned. "Your fabrics are primitive. They won't regulate temperature." "Maybe not," he said, draping it gently over her shoulders anyway. "But it helps." Something about the warmth, not from the fabric but from the gesture, startled her. Her pulse quickened. On Lyra, no one offered comfort. Compassion was considered inefficiency. Yet here she was, her heart betraying her discipline. "You humans," she murmured, half to herself, "are reckless with your care." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but that's how we survive the cold." That evening, when she returned to her ship, the air inside felt heavier than ever. Kale awaited her in the central chamber, flanked by armored guards. "You've changed, Princess," he said, his tone cautious. "The Council fears your sympathy for these creatures clouds your purpose." Her violet eyes narrowed. "And what purpose is that, Kale?" "To bring order. To civilize chaos. The humans are unstable, emotional contagions that must be corrected." Serafina's voice sharpened. "Or perhaps they are what we have lost." Kale's expression hardened. "You sound like one of them." "Maybe," she said softly. "Maybe that's why I finally understand them." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do not forget who you are, Serafina. The Empire watches every breath. Your heart is not yours to give." She turned away, her jaw tightening. But when she spoke, her words carried a tremor of defiance. Then let them watch. Perhaps they'll finally see what we've forgotten, what it means to feel. Kale's eyes flickered with anger and disbelief. Your compassion will destroy you. Then so be it. That night, Serafina stood again at her observation window, the earth spinning softly beneath her. Her reflection stared back, regal, composed, and yet undeniably different. For the first time, she questioned everything, her duty, her logic, her destiny. Was she becoming weak? Or finally becoming alive? Down below, she saw a faint glow, the humans' fires burning through the night, hope flickering against the void. And amid that glow, she imagined Elias, still working, still believing. She pressed her hand against the glass and whispered, "Why does it hurt to care?" The stars gave no answer, but her heart, fragile, rebellious, humanized, beat louder than the silence. The first sign of betrayal came with the sky. A thin red light streaked across the clouds, then another, then dozens, descending from orbit like falling stars. The people of Earth looked up in terror, unaware that their doom was disguised as beauty. Elias knew immediately. "That's not a drill," he said, voice tight as he grabbed his communicator. "Incoming strike pattern, Lyrian code." Serafina froze. Her people were attacking, without her order. Moments later, the signal pulsed inside her mind, an imperial override. Kale's voice filled her thoughts through the psychic link used only by Lyrian royalty. "Your hesitation has endangered our mission. The Council has taken command. Earth's assimilation begins now." Her pulse raced. "Kale, abort the strike!" "There are civilians." "You are compromised, Princess," came his cold reply. "Stand down. Return to the flagship for debriefing." But she didn't move. Outside, the first blast struck the coastline. Fire ripped through the sky, tearing through the fragile scaffolds the humans had built. Screams echoed, and the light of burning metal painted the world crimson. Elias ran through the chaos, pulling survivors from debris. "Serafina!" he shouted over the roar. "We have to move." She stood motionless, watching the horror unfold. Her empire, her own blood, was murdering those she'd grown to protect. Every instinct screamed for her to obey, to return to the safety of command. But her heart, the treacherous human part of her, wouldn't let her. She turned sharply to Elias. "I can stop this." He grabbed her arm. "You can't fight your own fleet." Her eyes flared with violet fire. "Watch me." Moments later, her ship tore through the clouds, engines blazing. She entered the Lyrian communication field, overriding the command frequency with her royal code. Her voice filled every alien ship's channel. "This is Princess Serafina of Lyra," she declared. "Cease all bombardment immediately." "That is a direct order. Silence." Then Kale's voice came through, steady and cruel. "You no longer hold command, Your Highness. By decree of the Council, you are relieved of authority." Her chest tightened. "Then you've relieved yourself of honor," she hissed. "Emotion has corrupted you, Serafina. You've fallen under the human sickness." Her eyes shimmered. "If compassion is sickness, then may the whole galaxy be infected." She cut the transmission. Her hand shook, but she steered her ship directly between the Lyrian fleet and the surface below. Her vessel's shields flared brilliant silver, absorbing the next barrage meant for the humans. The blast rocked her ship violently. Systems screamed. But she held the line. Below, Elias and the others watched the sky erupt in light, one ship standing against an entire fleet. "She's protecting us," whispered a child, clutching her mother's hand. Elias felt something heavy and fierce rise inside him. She's defying her own empire. He sprinted to the nearest comm tower, struggling to connect with her frequency. "Serafina, you're taking too much fire." "Pull back!" Her voice came through, faint but steady. "Not until they stop. You'll die." "Perhaps," she whispered. "But if one act of defiance can save a world, then maybe that's worth dying for." Inside her ship, sparks rained as panels shattered. The engines howled. Serafina gritted her teeth, forcing every ounce of power into the shield barrier. For the first time in her existence, she was not guided by logic or duty, but by feeling. The fleet above faltered. Confused voices echoed through the intercom. Even Kale hesitated. "Princess, stand down. You're making a mistake." Her reply was quiet but unbreakable. "No, Kale, I'm making a choice." And then she did something no Lyrian had ever done in the history of their empire. She deactivated her royal insignia, the mark of absolute command, and redirected its energy to shield the humans below. The light from her ship burst like a second sun, wrapping the burning city in a dome of protection. Down below, Elias fell to his knees, staring at the sky with disbelief. "She's saving us," he whispered. The wind howled, carrying with it a name that would soon echo through galaxies. The name of a princess who defied an empire, for the sake of a single human and the fragile world that had changed her heart. The sky was torn between beauty and ruin. The silver glow of Serafina's ship burned like a wounded star above Earth, a fragile barrier trembling under the weight of an empire's fury. Below, the humans could only watch, powerless yet awed, as one alien princess defied her own kind. Elias had never seen anything like it. The woman who had once called his people chaotic was now shielding them with her very life. He could barely hear himself think over the screams of engines, the distant thunder of blasts breaking against her shields. "Serafina, answer me," he shouted into the communicator. "You can't keep that up and you'll burn the ship out." Her voice came back, weak but steady, wrapped in static. "I know, but as long as I stand, they won't strike again. Then I'm coming up there." "No, Elias," she snapped, suddenly fierce. "Stay with your people. Protect them. That's an order," he smiled bitterly. "Funny, you don't outrank me anymore." For a brief, broken second, even through the chaos, and she laughed. Stubborn human. High above, the Lyrian fleet reformed into formation. The council had spoken. Serafina's rebellion was to be silenced. Lord Kael's ship led the line. His face appeared on every display aboard her vessel. His expression was that of a commander facing a tragedy. Cold, resolute, but not without sorrow. "You've left me no choice, Serafina. You're forcing me to destroy you." Her fingers hovered over the console. "You don't have to. Tell them to stand down. The Empire cannot bend to emotion. You taught me that once." Her heart clenched. "Then I was wrong. Emotion makes rulers weak." "No, Kael," she said softly. "It makes rulers human." He hesitated, and for the first time. Then his ship's cannons began to glow. Down below, Elias stared at the burning sky. The moment the first blast hit her ship, the light was blinding. He felt his chest seize. "No, Serafina." Her ship reeled, flames scattering across its hull. Inside, alarms screamed. She fell against the console, blood, silver and luminous, tracing down her temple. She staggered back to her feet, every movement trembling with pain. Her voice crackled through the comms, reaching the surface. "Elias, listen carefully." "I'm here," he said instantly. "Don't you dare say goodbye." "I need you to evacuate the survivors," she said, ignoring him. "Head for the southern ridge." "My ship's core can still hold, but not for long." He shook his head violently. "I'm not leaving you." She smiled faintly, unseen. "You humans, always choosing heart over reason. Because it's who we are," he shouted. "You taught me that doesn't make us weak. It makes us worth saving." Her eyes softened, her voice breaking just slightly. "Then save them, Elias. That's the only way this means something." As the Lyrian fleet closed in, Serafina redirected her ship's final power source, the royal core, the very essence of her lineage. It would destroy the vessel, but create a shockwave powerful enough to force the fleet back. She closed her eyes, hands trembling over the control sphere. "Forgive me, Father," she whispered. "I found something worth more than perfection." And with that, she pressed the command. The sky ignited. A vast wave of light rippled outward, soft, silver, almost peaceful, sweeping through the fleet, disabling their weapons, bending their formation apart. It didn't destroy them. It simply stopped them. From the ground, it looked as if a star had bloomed over Earth. Silent, radiant, eternal. Then the light faded. Her ship was gone. Elias fell to his knees, staring at the empty sky. Around him, the wind carried the faint echo of her final words, not through the radio, not through any device, but in his mind. Hope was never a weakness. Tears blurred his vision. Serafina. The humans around him didn't know her name. They didn't know the cost. But when the alien fleet retreated, silent, defeated not by force but by compassion, they understood that something extraordinary had happened. One princess had stood against the stars, and won. The war was over. Not because the humans had stronger weapons, but because one alien princess had chosen mercy over conquest. For weeks, Earth remained under a quiet sky. No more ships appeared. No more threats echoed across the stars. The Lyrian fleet had withdrawn, leaving behind only whispers and the memory of her light. Elias' heart walked through the rebuilding city each morning, feeling the silence where her voice used to live. The people had begun to rebuild again, stronger this time. They didn't know her name, not truly, but they spoke of the Star Guardian, the mysterious light that had shielded the planet from destruction. Only Elias knew the truth. Only he remembered her laughter, her strength, her final smile through the static. He'd gone to the crash site a dozen times, searching for any trace of her ship. Every time he found nothing but scorched glass and shards of metal. Until one morning, the sea receded at low tide and he saw it. A small, crystal-like fragment half buried in the sand. He knelt down, brushing it free. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The Lyrian crest shimmered within, her royal insignia, the one she had deactivated in defiance. And in that instant, Elias felt it. Not a voice, not words, but warmth. A pulse of emotion so vivid it made his breath catch. She was still there. Somehow. He whispered, "You didn't die, did you? You became something more." Months passed. A fragile peace spread across Earth. Then one day a transmission came, not from orbit but from Lyra itself. The message was simple, brief, and sent to all human channels. By decree of the Lyrian Council, contact with Earth is to be halted indefinitely. The actions of Princess Seraphina of Lyra have been recorded as a matter of great shame and of great wonder. The voice paused, then continued, quieter. Her final act has sparked division within our empire. Some call her traitor, others call her savior. But none can deny this truth. She changed us. Elias played that message over and over, each time feeling both pride and pain. He knew what it meant. Her sacrifice had done more than save Earth. It had touched her people, perhaps even awakened something they had long forgotten. Years later, Elias stood on the same ridge where they'd first worked side by side. The ruins were gone now, replaced by new towers and gardens, and a monument, a silver sculpture shaped like an open hand holding a sphere of light. Children played at its base, chasing each other through the grass. One girl stopped, looking up at the monument. Who was she? She asked. Elias smiled gently. She was someone who believed in us, even when her world told her not to. The child tilted her head. Was she human? He looked up at the shining figure. No, but in the end she was more human than most of us will ever be. As the sun set, the monument glowed faintly, not from lights, but from within. The same soft silver hue that once filled the sky. Elias took the crystal fragment from his pocket and held it to the fading light. It pulsed again, one slow, steady beat. He closed his eyes, smiling through the ache. You kept your promise, Seraphina. You protected hope. The wind whispered across the hill, carrying the scent of rain and renewal. And in that moment, he almost thought he heard her voice. Faint, tender, echoing through his heart. Elias, you taught me what it means to feel. Don't let that die. He opened his eyes. The stars were rising again, bright, endless, alive. No longer symbols of fear, but of connection, because somewhere among them, an alien princess had chosen to love humanity not as subjects, but as equals. And that love, unspoken, impossible, beautifully human, had become her legacy.